This conference is the culminating activity of a project founded by the Chilean National Agency for Research and Development that aim at creating an international collaboration network to address some of the theoretical, methodological, and epistemological challenges associated with the study of experience. Some of the speakers are members of this project. We spent more than 2 years meeting regularly, remotely, and also in person. And this event seeks to extend the conversation, inviting other researchers and all of you to reflect together on some of the challenges related to researching experience. Although it's through our experience that we get to know the world, it has not been easy to give it a legitimate place in scientific knowledge. The evolution of scientific thought in the West gave rise to an understanding of cognition that for a long time excluded subjective experience from the spectrum of reliable knowledge, regarding it as something suspicious, which we cannot fully trust. Looking for an objective world independent of the observer, scientific endeavor has traditionally been understood as the scrutiny of an object, always different from the subject who is studying it, and that cannot be changed by the research situation or by the researcher. A rather static position that contrasts with the dynamism of our experience. A position that lacks intimacy with our sensations, with our bodies, and most critically, that has lost familiarity with the practices and gestures that allow us to come into contact with that bodily knowledge. That said, in the last decades, this mainstream view has been challenged from different disciplinary fields, proposing a more critical vision to science that recognizes the role of the observer and its bodily experience in the generation of knowledge. In the field of cognitive science, the development of the enactive approach to cognition contributed to give a space for the inquiry of experience. This space was more explicitly claimed in the research program of neurophenomenology proposed by Francisco Varela, offering a framework for the study of experience in cognitive science and neuroscience. Neurophenomenology proposed the development of a science of consciousness that recognizes the irreducible nature of lived experience, inviting to the establishment of a dialogue between traditional methods of cognitive science, so-called third-person methods, and methods that address lived experience from a first-person perspective, posing as one of the reference for that the philosophical tradition of phenomenology. This proposal had an echo in several research groups, awakening the concern for the investigation of experience in the field of cognitive science and neuroscience, and promoting the development of methods and procedures to carry it out, giving way to what has been called as the subjective turn. In particular, it promoted the development of micro-phenomenology, one of the most consolidated approaches to the study of experience in the area of cognitive science. However, the radical nature of this turn has been questioned, mainly because the methodological, theoretical, and epistemological tension underlying the attempt to establish a dialogue between these two approaches has been solved, for the most part, assuming an objectivist framework. Consequently, the insights that lived experience can bring to the study of consciousness and to scientific endeavor has been restricted. This imbalance is partly due to the different degree of development and consolidation of these two traditions of knowledge in the West. Methods for making phenomenology a research practice are relatively recent, and so is the community of researchers who use these methodologies. Therefore, the study of experience as a discipline in which there is coherence between the phenomenon of study, the conceptual framework, the methods, and the criteria that allow the evaluation of the results is still under construction. This is why it seems necessary to work consolidation of this discipline and to explore what its own limits and possibilities are. Only then we can glimpse the scope and transformative potential that the study of experience can have, not only for the scientific understanding of the phenomenon of consciousness, but also for a most conscious development of scientific endeavor. It is with this spirit that during the last 2 years, we have been discussing different issues and challenges that we organized around 3 thematic axes: the notion of experience, the issue of memory, and the issue of language. The first axis, the notion of experience, refers to the question of how we understand the notion of experience from an embodied or an active approach. Although it seems to be a theoretical matter, the motivation for addressing this question is mostly operational. When we do research or develop a methodology to do it, although implicitly we have assumptions about what we mean by the notion of experience. These assumptions will determine various decisions we take along the whole research process. And therefore, to have a coherent endeavor, it seems relevant to align those decisions and practices. What do we mean by lived experience? Is this notion differently understood in an active or embodied approach, in different branches of phenomenology? Which methodological consequences have these different understandings? Considering the phenomenological approach as a practice, how do we understand the notion of structure of experience? If a person's sociocultural contexts are constitutive part of their experience, how do we understand the suspension of the natural attitude? To what extent is it possible? The second axis, the notion of memory, refers to the question of how we understand the phenomenon of memory related to the process of evoking a past experience. Any methodology must face the challenge that experience is described in retrospect. That is to say, to connect with a particular experience and to describe it, we rely on memory. One of the criticisms made towards first-person approaches is that we cannot access our past with precision, and that it's highly probable that we create false memories. However, the notion of memory that underlies such criticism assumes that our memory, like computers, is a storage retrieval mechanism that, if works correctly, should recover a content stored in the past with no variations. So far, the response we have given to that criticism is that we have specific tools to avoid false memories to happen, and that there are indicators that allow us to know whether the person is actually in contact with the past experience. However, this type of answer somehow validates the understanding of memory as the recalling of events as they objectively happen. So how do we understand the process of evoking a past experience from an embodied or an active approach? What are the methodological and epistemological consequences of such understanding? How can the active or embodied and phenomenological frameworks broaden our understanding and treatment, for instance, of traumatic memories? Conversely, how can somatic approaches to trauma treatment broaden our understanding of the notion of memory? The third axis, the issue of language, refers to the question of how we understand the relationship between experience and language. Interview techniques relies on verbal descriptions and concepts for accessing a person's experience. As well as opening possibilities, concepts can be a limitation when trying to study a particular experience. particularly in view of the fact that words, labels, and categorization sometimes fail to convey the depth or complexity of experience, both at the time of the description and the time of the analysis of the results. This limitation raises the need to integrate other types of languages, such as different somatic and artistic expressions, to address the non-conceptual dimensions of experience. However, if under the enactive approach we understand experience as co-constituted by language, can we consider that primary or pre-reflective experience precede categorization and conceptualization? If so, can body and expressive practices serve as tools to address the non-conceptual and also the conceptual dimensions of experience? What will be the epistemological implications of such a possibility? As you can see, we have a rich menu of questions. We may not address them all, but we hope that over the course of these 5 days, through the panels, the workshops, and the poster sessions, we will be able to reflect and to experiment together on at least some of them. As some of you already know, this conference will originally be held in October last year, but due to the social outburst that occurs in Chile, we had to cancel it. This year, due to the pandemic, we had to hold the conference in an online format. And these two situations that can be considered as unrelated represent for many a great social, political, environmental, and ethical crisis that deeply questions the foundation of our way of life. Under the present global context, it seems even more relevant and urgent to reflect and discuss upon what is at stake in the development of a science of experience, a discipline that can represent a great contribution in reestablishing contact with ourselves and consequently with our community and with our environment. So that's the motivation for this meeting, and now I would like to refer to some logistics aspects. So in relation to the dynamic of the discussions, during the panels, the speakers will have 30 minutes to give their talk, and then we will have between 10 and 15 minutes for questions. To ask your questions, please send them in the private chat. There is a chat here in the right of your screen. So please send it to the person that has a chair in their name. So today it's me, so please send them to me. And I will make the questions or to give you the floor for you to do it, okay? But send them to me. On Friday, we will have a space for a longer discussion with all the speakers and all the workshop leaders. So for these discussions, you can either send the questions also to the person that has chair written in their name, or if you have questions during the week outside the space of the conference, you can send them to us by email. We will put the email in the chat. Okay, so you can also send your questions there. Okay, we have poster sessions too. So the posters and the explanatory videos are already published in our website. We will also post the website in the chat. So the idea is that you look at the posters before and you save your questions and comments for the poster session that we will have on Tuesday and Thursday. In this session, we will have half an hour for the researchers to answer your questions, and you have to check the program to see which poster author will be answering questions each day, either Tuesday or Thursday. Okay. Also, don't forget to register in the workshops. We will also put here in the chat the link for you to register in the workshop. Already many people have. For those of you who haven't done it yet, wait. Well, about the translation, as I said at the beginning, we have this possibility for Spanish and English in the icon in the bottom of your screen. The workshops won't have simultaneous translation. So some of them will have consecutive translation. So when you register, you should check the language of the workshop. About the recording. So we will record the panels to later publish them openly. The discussion might be recorded, but we won't publish the discussions. We will publish only the talks. And yeah, if you have any questions regarding the recordings, you can send us an email. There is a small change in the program for Wednesday. So we will, it's just one speaker, there is a swap of speakers in the schedule of Wednesday, but we will send you that information by email too. And yes, and finally, I would like to thank all the people that make this conference possible, to really thank the speakers that agreed to participate, considering all the challenges and problems that so it was going to be last year, now this year, and you were there with us, so thank you very much. And also I would like to thank all the organizing team of the Laboratorio de Fenomenología Corporal, Alejandra Vázquez, Ana María Valenzuela, María Isabel Gaete, Martina Fisher-Waring, Jorge Calderón, Victoria Silva, Danilo Rodríguez y Valentina Carrera. Thank you very much.